How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Freddy's Nightmares. This is Season 1, Episode 5, and this one's entitled Judy Miller, Come On Down. It originally aired November 6, 1988, and was directed by Tom DeSimone. The episode stars Siobhan E. McCafferty, John DeMita, Susan Oliver, and, as always, Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, our host. And I have to say, I thought this one was pretty good. It's a nightmare game show that continually gets bigger and bigger and more over the top. I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of my criticisms for the show in the past were just random out of nowhere visions, and it seemed a little bit rambly, but tying everything into this game show kept it focused, and also the fact that the game show was based on the main character's struggles really did help it be a character-driven story. I thought it was really well put together and a really fun idea. And without getting too much into specifics, the second half of this episode does carry over the characters from the first and has a continuing plot about this aftermath and what comes after being on a game show. There is a tiny bit of a omens from the future element and talking about how your life could play out in a drastically different way, and I thought that was a really cool idea for a sequel to a game show story. That being said, it's a little bit underdeveloped, and I'm not really even sure how we got to this point after how the first ended, but you know what? It's still really fun, so I like that. A lack of just random jump scares, character-driven, and the second story is a continuation of the first with its ideas. I think this has been a really good episode of the show, and I'm hoping that this does denote a positive trajectory, but of course, we'll have to see that next week. All that being said, let's talk a bit about more specifics. I'm not going to ruin the end, and I'm not going to do any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and do a bit of a deeper analysis. So from here on out, let's take a deeper dive. We open up with this woman, and we actually get a really good opening visual metaphor with her husband literally laying on top of her. But as she gets up and goes about her day, we find out some key information about her and the characters that surround her. It turns out she's going to work to support both her and her husband while the husband attends college. And I know couples that have done this in real life, but they usually agree to swap, and it doesn't seem like that's what they're doing. She's building a bit of resentment and seems to be quite frazzled and at the end of her rope, and when the husband says something like, "School is work too," yeah, when someone's angry, they don't usually want a snappy rebuttal, so you can see the resentment building here. We even get this bit where he goes, "What, honey? You didn't press my lucky shirt? I have an exam today," which does seem a fair bit petty, but also, man, looking back at cultural shifts of a show that's almost 40 years old, someone that's in college and is already married and cares enough about their appearance just going to college to want a pressed shirt? Yeah, I guess times do change, huh? She goes downstairs to make breakfast, and we get introduced to the in-law characters. They're living in the in-laws' house, but the in-laws are 100% on the son's side, and even though she's clearly tired and overworked, they're going to complain that she just doesn't do enough, and that, of course, is going to lead to some more resentment. And quick note, she calls the in-laws mom and dad, and if you want to do this in real life, fine, but never do it in a screenplay. It makes the audience so confused as to who these new characters are, and when you get this bit where the father-in-law is staring at her butt, it makes it even creepier when you think that that's her biological father. Yeah, just if you ever are writing a screenplay, bear in mind, I I don't know who these characters are at all, so don't have people call their in-laws mom and dad. Alright, whatever. Moving on. We find out that this girl is obsessed with making it out of here. She wants to win the lottery or go on a game show, just some stroke of luck that will get her some money because she really is at her wit's end. And I love that if we are doing a game show story, taking a moment and thinking who would really want to be on a game show, who would need it. And I love the fact that the character needs it. It makes the story so much more character driven. That night she goes to bed and has a dream that the host of a game show has told her that she got selected and to come on down and be on the show. And it's your classic game show. A big wheel, an over-the-top host, some trivia questions. But of course, the show gets a little personal. The host seems to know all about her. The questions go from trivia to pointed questions about her and what's making her life miserable. And then a bit of downright horror. And she has to ask herself, do I really hate these people in my life? There are some really cool moments, and in fact, there's a special effect in here that involves a set change. That was a really cool effect, and I thought was really nice. So yeah, a big over-the-top game show, that's a great bit of anthology horror, and I thought this first half was pretty fun. Now we get into the second half, which it does involve kind of the ending of the first half, so maybe a little bit of a light spoiler warning, but I honestly don't quite get the jump from the end of part 1 to the beginning of part 2. Somehow, even though that was clearly a nightmare, she did win $1 million, and I'm like, okay, that definitely wasn't real. Was it her processing a real event, or a vision of the future twisted through a nightmarish lens? I don't know. Somehow she actually walked away with real-world money, and no one's dead, so this is the aftermath of a game show. And I do like the themes in here of, I thought my life would be better, but turns out problems still exist. I mean, that's a good message. And we find out from like real lottery winners' stories that sometimes things do go pretty bad. Her life starts off seeming pretty idyllic. She's got a bunch of presents from the game show, and she's also wasted her money on stupid stuff, which, okay, yeah, that's a dumb decision, but it does happen in real life. And we see that her and her husband seem to be getting along a lot better, including a bit of a sex scene, but this is TV. You're not going to see anything. In fact, what you do see is a modesty pad that I don't think they thought would show up on camera, but totally did. But whatever. She's having a good time. The in-laws got sent off to Florida to a retirement community, and they have the whole house to themselves. Well, she decides to hire a maid to help her out, and something about the maid just seems off, and that's when she notices her and the maid have the exact same scar. Turns out they both got it when they were kids. She is a future version of the main character, and she has a dire warning. It turns out that the money would cause resentment between the couple. The husband would have an affair, and the new woman would say, I want all the money for myself, let's try to steal it from her and run off. She finds out about it and winds up killing her husband. And I do like the idea of saying, this is a big, horrific event. Am I really doomed to do something so extreme that I could never see myself doing? And I love the idea of a future version of yourself talking to a past version about your own life and the decisions you made along the way. That's cool. But that being said, the story doesn't have enough room to breathe. We get to see the maid make a few correct predictions, but the fact that this story only takes place over the course of one day rather than a few weeks, it doesn't have near enough time to build on this. But also the thing with her husband and the thing with saying, oh, the money will change you, it doesn't 100% work because the husband was already kind of scummy beforehand. You can't say, oh, this is a tragic love story, they really cared about each other and then the money changed things, because he was was already bad. Like, if you had it just be the in-laws, and he was really caring, then the shift would be more shocking. But as it stands, I didn't really care about their relationship because he was already sucky anyway. And of course, you know what they're going to say, the only way to avoid this is to give up all of your money. Which, oh my gosh, that felt so contrived. Like, for real, you don't need to give up all your money. Just get like an accountant and a financial counselor. Hey, the way things are going, you probably need a marriage counselor as well. Pay off what you can, get things like a decent house and car, and then set up some sort of account and make plans and goals. Don't just say, oh, it's driving a wedge between you. It's driving a wedge between you because you're acting immaturely. If you give it up, you're returning to part 1 of this story where you weren't happy anyway. So yeah, this feels contrived. This feels like we've given our character something, we have to take it away now because that's what stories are. And while in general I do like the idea of saying, oh, this thing I thought would make me happy actually won't, and I do like the idea of hearing from your future self, the fact that life was sucky before, and the fact that we don't really have time to dwell on this, yeah, it's a story where I can see where they were going, but it didn't pan out 100%. I still like that it is a continuation of the first, and there is some cool ideas in here, but yeah, I wasn't as big a fan of the second half. But whatever, in general the episode's still pretty good, and I hope the positive trajectory does continue. Episode 1 was an origin story that was a little clunky. 2 and 3 just seemed to be random stuff happening. 4 started to get more focused, and I'm glad to see that continue on to 5, and hopefully we continue to see that in the upcoming episodes. I would really love if this show pulled itself together a little bit better. Fingers crossed, I guess. Anyway though, all that being said, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my reviews for the past episodes of the show. If you want to see more, you can click right here and see more, and I hope to add more to that soon. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.